This video will show you how to use PSOC control devices with ModusToolbox software. First, we need to talk about a couple potential issues you might encounter. For example, you could have GitHub or internet access problems. You could have a conflict between early access packs and production software. Your board could be Kitprog 3 or Segger J-Link, and you may need to configure J-Link. So we'll go over those things during this video. First, we need to install the setup program. If you've already installed it, great. You can skip this part. If you don't have access to the internet, then you're going to need your IT department to do it. Here, we just go to the Infineon website for ModusToolbox software, and we'll click on the Download Software button. This opens the Developer Center, and by default, we're looking at Windows because that's a Windows machine we have, but you can also download for Linux and Mac OS, and they should default to whatever system you're using. All right, so once you click the download button, depending on your web browser, you'll see the download start. Here we just click it and we can watch the progress go. I'll speed it up a little bit so we don't take too long. And once it's done, you can be able to click on it and you'll be able to launch the installer. Here we want to install for me only on Windows. This will put it in your home directory by default. Click on Accept License Agreement, click Next, and then we will do the quick installation options. This will run the installer and put the setup program on your computer, and it'll give you a couple of options here at the end. So we can run the toolbox, but we don't need the release notes, so we'll deselect that and click Finish. After a few moments, the setup program launches and does a refresh to find out what's available. And then after a few moments, it'll show you what you can install. As you notice at the top left, I am logged in already, so the things that I have available to me might be different than what's available to you. Now we're going to select and install the different software packages. First, we're going to start with the ModusToolbox Tools package. We select that, and it selects the dependencies by default. There's GCC. It also selects the Edge Protect Security Suite and the programming tools. We're also going to manually select Eclipse, and we're going to select the Industrial MCU pack, which provides motor control support and power conversion. You'll also notice that I have some early access packs installed just to illustrate what it's going to look like later in the tools. We click Next, and then it just shows what you selected and what's going to be installed. Down on the right, you click the checkbox to select the license agreement, and then we start, and you can see various packages are waiting or being downloaded. They'll also be installed. This process will take about 5 to 10 minutes or so, and we're going to skip ahead to the last one being installed, and when that's finished, it'll refresh once again here. There we go. And it's just checking what's installed, and then it gives you some buttons to launch different tools. Let's talk about manifest and EAP settings for a moment. If you have no access to GitHub and you need to use an alternate database or manifest website, you can use that with the settings program. So on the settings menu, select ModusToolbox settings. This launches the tool that we need. Then you can go to Manifest DB, and it shows you the different options you have. You got the default for China. You've got advanced settings you can set if you need something else. We just will leave it at the default. And then we can look at the early access packs. You can see that I've got a couple installed, but if you have them, you have to make sure that they're disabled. We'll close this tool. And one more thing about the dashboard is you can use it to launch or create projects for any of the IDEs we support. We're going to use Eclipse, so we're not going to use the dashboard to launch it. Next, we're going to show you the process to create a project. And then we're back on the setup program here. We'll click Run next to Eclipse to launch that tool. When it launches, it asks you for a workspace. We recommend that you create a separate workspace for all your projects, just to avoid any kind of conflicts that may occur. Then we'll go ahead and launch it, and when it opens, it'll present you with the ModusToolbox perspective. And by that I mean on the left side we have, there's the license agreement first. Now on the left side we've got different links that you will use based on what you're going to do. And so one of the ones, the first one we're going to use is the new application link on the top left. We'll go ahead and click that. And this will launch the project creator tool. And after it loads the various manifests and shows you what's available, we're going to expand PSOC Control BSPs, and we're going to select the EBK here. And then we'll click Next. Here we have various applications that are available. We'll expand Getting Started. We'll take Hello World. You can change its name if you want. You can also rename the BSP. We'll leave them as they are. Click Create. And this now will go through the Git process of getting your libraries and application support files that are needed. Go ahead and skip ahead to the end. Process takes, 3 to 5 minutes in total, depending how big the project is. Hello World's pretty small, so it launches pretty fast. Then it closes, and we're back in Eclipse. And now Eclipse does its process to update what Eclipse needs to run the project. This doesn't take too long. We're not going to skip here. And then after a few more minutes, it'll load the project, and it'll finish up and load the README file. So as I mentioned before, we have the ModusToolbox perspective in Eclipse. First, you have the the Hello World project on the top left. That contains your source files for main C, for your main application file. You can also add additional headers and C files as you need. And here's the make file where you will configure the tool chain if need be, or set the debug or release mode. The MTB shared is where we acquired assets from GitHub for the support libraries that are needed for your application. As I mentioned, the C file again has the code that runs this particular application. Down at the bottom here, I mentioned the links before. We can look at them in more detail depending on what's selected. You can build your project or clean it here. There's a link to a quick guide. You can also debug and program. Further down, you can launch various tools that are needed to configure the application, and then there's some access to various documents. Now, I mentioned earlier you might want to use J-Link. If your kit supports it and you want to use J-Link, you take note that the kit that we selected is using kitprog 3 by default. So in order to change that, we've got to open the BSP and then go into the support files. There's a file called bsp.mk. Let's go ahead and open that. And in order to change to J-Link, we need to add a variable. And the variable is called BSP program interface. And we're going to say equals J-Link. And that tells the system that you want to use J-Link. Now, if you have multiple versions of J-Link installed, or it's not installed in the default location, we're going to need another variable called mtb J-Link dir. And that's just where did you install J-Link. Here on Windows, you can see where it's installed. There are other places for Mac OS and Linux if that's the system that you're using. So we'll copy the path and we'll paste it in here. And then the one trick here for Windows is you need /. Yes, it's because we're running make, and it requires Linux style paths. So once we've entered that variable, we go ahead and click Save. And then there's a button down under Launches called Generate Launches for this project. We'll go ahead and click that. And then we just wait a few moments, and you'll notice that the launches here will automatically change from kitprog 3 to J-Link. So you'll be ready to program and debug using J-Link as needed. Hopefully this video has been helpful for you, and you can develop with your application of PSOC Control going forward.